going to really dive into the good, the bad, the misconceptions, a lot of stuff around turnover, whether that be agents that are maybe right now struggling, saying, should I give up? Hopefully, we'll give you some inspiration to keep going. Well, it's a team leader that is struggling with the effects that turnover can have on your organization. Hopefully, we can help unpack some of that for you today. Welcome back to another episode of All or Nothing in Real Estate. I'm your host, Matt Smith, the founder of All or Nothing in Real Estate. This podcast is a movement to give back to this amazing industry that's given so much to me and my family. And today we're going to dive in on a topic that I don't hear anyone talk about. I think it's a topic that is relative to everyone inside of the space, whether you're a single agent, whether you're a new agent, whether you're an aspiring agent, a team leader, a broker owner, a real estate coach. It's something that applies to everyone, but for some reason, no one seems to talk about it. And so today we're going to unpack it and talk about it. And that topic is attrition. That topic is turnover. And it's real. It happens. And so we're going to really dive into the good, the bad, the misconceptions, a lot of stuff around turnover, whether that be agents that are maybe right now struggling, saying, should I give up? Hopefully, we'll give you some inspiration to keep going. Well, it's a team leader that is struggling with the effects that turnover can have on your organization. Hopefully, we can help unpack some of that for you today. We've got a special guest with us today. Jenna Swift is going to help us break this down. She's seen it from a different lens and can hopefully give some more detailed perspective to really help unpack this for us. So Jenna, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you saw the panic on her face. She forgot she was muted. So Jenna she's a member of our team, Matt Smith Real Estate Group. She's on leadership. She runs marketing, is also kind of running some of our operations currently. And so she gets to see a different perspective that I thought would be beneficial for the audience today to talk about attrition. So I'm going to dive right in, Jenna. I think that when we say attrition, when we say turnover, when we say, well, agents left the team or agents left the business or agents maybe even chose to go to a different organization, I think it just has a negative context. I think most people think that is just, ooh, that's negative, right? And I don't think that's always the case. I think from personal experience in our organization, are there times that maybe it feels that way? Sure. But overwhelmingly, it's always been a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is hard because there are people that you get to know and people that you want to see them succeed. You become friends with them and then they, leave that environment, and that can be really challenging. But it's usually ends up being better for both the environment and for that individual too.
Yeah, 100%. And I've seen that over and over again as a team leader. It's my responsibility to protect the team first. Mm-hmm. And there's different ways that we do that. But I think that, and we're going to unpack that, but I think that it's the misconceptions are, well, if you're losing agents, there must be something wrong. If agents are choosing to work somewhere else, there must be a better opportunity somewhere else. If agents aren't selling houses, maybe there's something wrong with the environment. And all those are things that you probably should look into. I certainly have, with really in depth, to look in the mirror first and say, man, we've had some turnover. I mean, as an example, we've lost 6 agents this year. Well, we've also brought on 18. And for those of you that maybe follow me on social media, I just shared a post that a lot of leaders reached out to me privately saying, man, this is epic. This is great. Not many people can make a post like that. And it's we have 10 agents that have sold over 100 homes since they've been on the team. And the team's been in existence, 2016 it was formed, right? So put that in perspective. And collectively, those 10 have sold how many, Jenna?
Over 1,600 homes.
Over 1,600 families served from those 10, which is pretty just miraculous. It's amazing. And so I think in a weird way, attrition helps that. Mm-hmm. Turnover helps that. And so we're going to unpack that a little bit. But before I go to the next item, Jenna, would you like to kind of share maybe some misconceptions that you hear, or maybe I think you have a unique perspective because it does have a negative context on the overall culture sometimes, even
Mhm.
with members that you work with, even with the marketing department that you work with. It can just feel like it's a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, there are some truths that I do think are important to point out. First, you had mentioned all those questions you went through of like, why is it happening kind of thing. And I do think it's really important that we as leaders stay so curious as to why things are happening and really address and challenge if that's the truth. Because I'm not going to make accusations or I should say assumptions. Sorry, I'm not going to make assumptions about other teams. So you have to be able to really challenge the things that people are accusing you of and look internally and see if there's any layer of truth to them so you can hit that head on. So I think that's really important. I will say, I came from a background where turnover wasn't really existent. I was a nanny for 9 years, and turnover is not a thing as a nanny, so you don't experience it. And
If it was like, I don't like, yeah, give me the next one. This one
Yeah,
cries.
next one. This one cries too much. Get him away. But so turnover is not really a thing as a nanny. But even when I was in an educational setting, or if I was in a job that was more of a corporate style entry level position, turnover is a really taboo subject. It's like, oh, if there's turnover, this is bad. It's bad, 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 bad. And so when I came to Matt Smith Real Estate Group in a real estate company, it was very kind of jarring for me initially because I'm like, there are people leaving a little more frequently than what I'm used to. And it took a little bit for me to adjust to it because I'm not the kind of person who's going to just feel something uncomfortable and run away from it. If I see something that I don't quite understand, it doesn't click in my brain. I think it's really important that you dive into it and you challenge it and you address it and you see different viewpoints. And in doing that, I learned a lot about who we are as a company, that we have high standards, we have expectations, we hold our people to those things. And we also have a strong culture, and we're not willing to settle for a not great culture, for a mediocre culture. And because of that, it produces sometimes that turnover that we're talking about. It's not always culture related. Sometimes it's just not a good fit, period. They're not meshing and we're not meshing, and it just walk away. But it was a little jarring for me to get used to. And now it's something that, I've grown a little bit more accustomed to, but I've been able to see the fruits of it on both ends. Like I said, not only is it better for our environment to see it growing stronger, but it's also better for the other person, that they weren't really in the place that they needed to be, and they're able to find a place that maybe better suits them and their goals and stuff like that. So I found that it's been more of a positive, less of a taboo, and less of a negative.
Yeah, and there are aspects of it that are negative, right? It's never fun. It's never an easy thing to do because, like, at least in our environment, and most people have a big heart and they want people to win. But the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that sometimes as leaders, and I struggle with this still, is that I want people to win more than they want to win.
Mm-hmm.
I want more for them than they want for themselves. And so there's two things that I've struggled with over the years, and me either pushing them further than they want to be pushed, which drives them away, drives a wedge in the relationship, or me holding on too long because I know they can do it. They're just choosing not to, hoping that they'll wake up and do it. And I want it for them, and they aren't doing what they need to do for themselves. And that just prolongs the suffering
Mm-hmm.
before they decide real estate's not for me. And so what I've just realized as a leader, again, I'm not perfect, but what I've just realized is that whenever you're having those, like, it really helps the other individual and it helps the team, which I have to protect whenever you just make those decisions quicker. And I'm not saying just, hey, someone's not producing or someone has one bad day and we just fire them. That's not, don't go that far, right? That's not what I'm saying at all. But I am saying it's really important that you develop a system and a plan that we try to get people back on track. So we use our core values as an example, as a guardrail. And you know what? Sometimes you cross the rumble strips when you're driving down the road. Well, guess what? That's a reminder. Oh, let me veer back over. And our core values are kind of like our rumble strips, our guardrail of like, oops, we kind of got outside of that. Let's get back on track. And now if people refuse to get back on track, that's you're going to crash the car, and I can't let that happen, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just really important that we have those conversations. We give them an opportunity to make that adjustment because we're all humans. Let's talk about productivity though, right? Let's say it's a production based. I think that we have too much ego in this business, and I still have ego, right? It's not like it disappeared. I've just been able to control it better than I used to. And one of the things I used to say is that I had this high ego of we were just a really high producing team and everything was going really, really well. And I said, if you come join our team, I'll make you successful. And it's just such a bullshit lie. I can't make anyone successful. I don't care who you are. Like nobody can make anyone else successful. That person has to want it for themselves. And thank God I started coaching with John Cheplack, and he really helped me see this from a different perspective. And my responsibility as a leader of this organization is to provide the environment for them to make a choice to be successful. And so what I look at now is the environment a successful environment where they have the opportunity to be successful? If they do ABC, will they be successful? Now, if they choose to do ABC or choose not to do ABC, that's out of my control. Certainly, there's some leadership, some coaching, some training, some accountability that I can help with, and that's part of what our environment provides. But ultimately, it's up to them. And I think that too many people just get stuck in that. And I see that with, especially as a coach, I see that in other aspiring leaders that are growing their teams. Is they're just like, they really struggle to enforce the standards. They really struggle to have the accountability conversations. And I really think that it comes from two spots. It's ego and heart. And it's really weird that it comes from both of those because they're contradicting, right? The ego says, I can make you successful. But the heart says, man, I really want something more for that person. But both of those combined are just a really, really bad combination for a leader to have. It's just a constant struggle, causes all kinds of conflict and sleepless nights. And so I just think that sometimes you just have to lay it out, and you have to have a standard, and you have to say, here are the expectations. Here's what we will do for you. We are business partners here. Here's what we will do. We'll hold up our end of the bargain. Here's where you meet us halfway.
Yeah.
And they do or they don't. And I think too, I want to talk about the ego a little bit more, is that one of like when we have our boot camp of bringing new agents on, the very first session is the one that I refuse to let anyone else teach in our organization. I need to be part of it because I think it's the most important one. And it's on mindset. And I think that if you don't start off with the right mindset, it doesn't matter. And the very first stat that I give everyone is 87% of real estate agents fail. 87%. That's just a stat. That's real. It's been the same number or close to it ever since I've been in the business. It's probably even higher than that now because of like last year, 70,000 agents left the business. There are projections and articles that I've read that say another 200,000 are going to leave this year. And so who are we as like this high ego individual saying, well, that's not going to affect our organization. That won't affect our business. I mean, it's the numbers are the numbers. And I think it was on this podcast, actually, I interviewed Will Grimes, and he opened my eyes to several things. And I think he's a great leader, and he's got a great story. Go back and find his episode. It was really, really powerful. But he said, dude, like so many people want more for others than they want for themselves. And he said, I just realized not everybody's cut out to be a real estate agent. And that's fine. Why are we trying to put a square peg in a round hole? Why are we trying to force people to be a real estate agent when that's not what they want? That's not where they excel. And so it just really helped me make those decisions quicker. And like if 87% of real estate agents fail and we bring in a bunch of new agents in our organization, it's my job to set the proper expectations. But the reality is, what's the chances of 100% of them making it?
I mean, you have to think about and I think this is something for team leaders specifically. You know, when you guys are running a team, you've been in it for a while. You've been in the real estate space for a while. You've been selling homes for a while. Brand new agent, they walk in, they're at the very beginning, and real estate is hard. And I would say, especially right now, real estate is incredibly hard. We went from it being, if you had a pulse, you could sell, to whereas now you really have to work very, very hard as a real estate agent. And a lot of people some of them aren't prepared for that. And I think that's something that you would need to a lot of team leaders need to reflect on is, are you getting people in your organization that you're not setting the proper expectations on the front end of how hard and how much work it does take to be a real estate agent? Are you painting this fairy picture of, yeah, you're going to walk in and you're going to be selling homes in no time, you're going to be crushing it, like that's amazing, hopefully that's the case, but it's not going to happen without work. Like you're going to have to put in the work. So making sure you're setting those expectations on the front end, knowing that it is going to be challenging, so when they have that conversation with you, like, hey, Matt, I'm struggling, I don't like this, I don't like any of this, I feel like I'm failing every day. And you're like, do you remember in the interview when I told you this is not going to be easy? You're going to have to make calls. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to have people cussing you out on the phone every now and then. But in that time, you're also going to have people who are so incredibly grateful. And you have to push through it to get to those people.
100%. And I think, and I want to get back to we have 4 points that we're going to cover, but I want to say something, and then I want to get back to kind of go more in depth on these points. Something that you said there that you unpacked goes back to, like, Jenna, you know me, I'm just a quotes guy. Like, that's just how I remember things. And so, like, one of the things that I've heard, and I got it from John Cheplack, at any time you're having a conversation with an agent that could be framed as a disagreement, can you go back to the interview? And if you can't, you need to adjust your interview, because part of the interview's job isn't here's where I used to go wrong, and where a lot of people that I coach, I kind of help them adjust, is the interview. Yes, it needs to be a sales pitch. You want them to join, you want them to get excited, and you want to, but most people spend all their time doing feature dump, and it's features and benefits. But how many times do we actually set the expectations of the work that it's going to take before they join? And so we make it sound like, hey, if you come over here, it's all sunshine and rainbows and it's all these great things. And we don't unpack the work that's required. And then they start and they're like, holy shit, I didn't know I was going to have to, like, call people. I literally had someone say, I checked in a week after they started, and I said, I just see it's like panic on your face, and I feel like you're struggling to, like, get into the culture. What can I do to help? And literally, like, they were like panicked, and their face turned ghost white and said, I didn't realize I was going to have to call people. I'm like, holy cow, how did I mess this up? Right. But, like, we've been doing it so long, it's normal to us, and we understand what is required. But do we really take the time to unpack that and set the proper expectations up front? Because I'll tell you, those disagreements, which we all have, we're humans, right? And so a disagreement or a conflict isn't a bad thing either. Let's get rid of that misconception. Conflict is healthy. Conflict is how you get to solution, right? And so let's say you're having a conflict with an agent. Are you able to go back to the interview? Because if you are, and say, hey, Jenna, thank you so much for bringing that up. If you remember, when we talked in the interview, we talked about this is the activity that's going to be required. You remember that, right? And Jenna's like, oh, yeah, I do. So, all right, let's go back to this is what we agreed to, right? Like this, and it just really helps that conversation and helps Jenna stay on the path in this instance, versus, like, me not preparing them, not setting the expectation. The agent says, I didn't know I was going to have to make this many calls. I didn't know I was going to have to deal with the rejection. I didn't know that contracts were going to fall through. I didn't know that it was going to take 90 days to get momentum in my business. I didn't know any of this. No wonder they struggle. Right? Like, it's just important that we set those proper expectations. And like, if you're interested in having a conversation more in depth, like, I've got a framework, and I'm happy to unpack this further. Because I think it's specific per team leader, per team. However, it's something I've coached a lot of people through. And I think, like, a summary that is a principle that applies is that you just have to be able to set the proper expectations. And it is more crucial to set the proper expectations than to give them your features and benefits. I'll just transparently, and a lot of our agents listen to this podcast. Thank you for listening. But you know how many of our agents don't even know what our commission split is when they join? Because that's not what we focus on. What we focus on is how we can help them as a human. We tell them the other success stories. We tell them how much money they can make if they follow the plan. Because it's not about the commission split. It's not about anything other than how we can impact their life for the better. And are they willing to do the work to accomplish it? And it's really that simple. And so I think we should spend more time in our interviews setting up expectations. And, like, this is an extreme, but I think it's an extreme to help people reframe their mind. is what I coach people to do is like after you decide, I met with Jenna, we interviewed, and I think she's a good culture fit. She's excited to join the team. I'm going to try to talk her out of joining because the work's going to be too hard. And if she still wants to join, all right, Jenna's a good fit. Again, that's an extreme example, but that's how serious you need to set the expectations. Otherwise, you're just wasting her time and your time bringing on someone that's not hungry, motivated, and willing to do the work.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to I want to unpack misconceptions a little further. Jenna, I would love what have you heard on the misconceptions or maybe the chatter or the concerns, probably is a better word, from other people inside of our organization when they see that we do have some turnover? Like, what does that feel like from a team member?
Well, and I think initially it's just a lot of like, is there something going on that I don't know? Like, is there something happening that are people just being let go left and right, which is almost never the case. I remember having a conversation with a team member who was really concerned about turnover. And I had said to him, I was like, everyone has a season, sometimes people's seasons are here and sometimes people's seasons are elsewhere. But every single person has a season. And just because they decide their season isn't here, that doesn't mean that we're bad or they're bad. And it also doesn't mean that everyone else's season who's at Matt Swift Real Estate Group is going to be ending here soon too. It's just the truth for that person, not for everyone. But I think that that's a big comment. It's like this panic of, oh my gosh, something's happening that I don't know about, is what I see a lot of.
Yeah. It's just the unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that, let's talk about expectations. Let me take my own coaching there. Is one of the things that we've adjusted is just being more transparent and upfront about, what turnover happens. Literally, we just had a Tuesday meeting talking about turnover happens and it's going to happen more.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's something a lot of teams struggle with. And it's something we've really struggled with on how much do you give, right? Like when you have a team member who decides to leave the organization, it's a delicate dance of, do you share the whole story? Do you share pieces of it? Do you how much do you give and how much do you not give? Because you don't want to speak, if it's someone who left on bad terms, you don't want to speak negatively about them and spread gossip. But I think it's something a lot of people struggle with. I know we spoke with a team who said, yeah, I went and I told them everything and it freaked the whole team out, Yep. And then we've had other teams who are like, well, I didn't tell them anything. And the whole team was like, well, I feel like we have no clue what's going on. And so it feels like you can't win. I know you've experienced this. What are some things you feel like you've worked through to find a balance in that?
Yeah. It is situational, right? So it's really hard to give an answer for everything, but I think there are principles that apply. And then one of the principles is always take the high road, right? Never get into the weeds. I just think that as leaders, we have to be above that. And no matter how nasty or ugly or any of that it gets, you have to take the high road. That's a principle that remains. It is your responsibility to protect the people that are still in the organization, and you don't do that by talking shit on people that left. Mm-hmm. So don't ever fall for that trap. Number two would be address it head on. One of the things that we do is we have a private Facebook group, and whenever someone departs that day, it's our rule. It has to be done that day. We do usually it's me or maybe it's our sales manager. I think Jenna's even maybe done one or two. Is like we just address it head on. Hey, just want to let you know so and so is no longer with the company. We wish them the absolute best. If you have any questions, remember we have a no gossip policy. If you have any questions, please come to me. My door is open. I would love to talk to you about it, but we wish them the absolute best. That's a simple framework. I think situationally, you can work through how to say some things without saying some things. And I want to be careful how I say this, but I think that, let's say that it was somebody that was let go because of lack of production, right? Like they weren't doing the work. They didn't make the changes. We met several times and they weren't willing to make the changes in their activity to get the results that we need on the team to meet our standards. Then I would say something to the effect of, hey guys, just want to let you know, we believe in transparency here at Matt Smith Real Estate Group. And so is no longer with the organization. Just a reminder, our standards are here for a reason. We have to make sure that we abide by, do the activities, and those things are here to protect you and to protect the culture and to protect the integrity of what we do here. So I'm kind of saying they left because they weren't willing to do the work, but I'm not saying they're not willing to do the work. I'm reminding everyone else that, hey, we do have production standards. It's super important, right? That we abide by that. And you can tie that simple framework to if it's culturally related, you have to be even more careful. Because again, you want to take the high road, and just because they didn't fit in your cultures doesn't necessarily make them a bad person, right? It's just they're not a good fit. And so, like, then you can just have a generic statement of so and so is no longer with us. As you know, culture comes first. We really live and breathe by our core values, and just I think at times like this, it reminds me that we need to continue to put our culture and our core values first, right? Like just simple generic statements that hopefully give a clue, but also it's staying above board and reminding everyone else of here's where we're going.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed you do as well, I think it's important, leaders, you have a really great pulse on your culture, because there will be people, one, it's important you always have a path for everyone on your team that if they have questions, if they have concerns, they know where to go. So you have to make sure that path is always eliminated no matter what. But when you have a pulse in your culture, you know that there are people who, when, let's say they're leaving the team, you know it's going to hit a little bit harder than maybe if somebody else did, because you have maybe one person's only been for 1 month and this other person's been here for years. You know that's going to be hard. One thing I saw Matt do is he'll go person to person, pull them one-on-one. Hey, I know that this is really hard. I know you guys, talked a lot about, maybe you were close. Wanted to hear if you had any questions, if there's anything I can do for you. It's just another way to build that one-on-one connection and to help stop gossip before things spiral, especially when it's with someone who's been with a company for a long time. If you're avoiding that kind of stuff as a leader and you're not willing to address it head on, you can guarantee that there will be gossip and there will be negativity, even if there was no negativity around them leaving. So being able to address it head on, I think that's something that Matt does really, really well.
That's a really good point. Thank you. And Jen is always a reminder for me when those things are needed. But I think it's situational, right? Like that doesn't happen every time. But that happens if it's somebody that has been really well integrated, been with our team for a long time. They've got really great relationships, which is one of our core values. I just think it's time well spent to pull everybody aside one-on-one. Sometimes I'll do this in a phone call, but most of the time I'll just go grab them and say, hey, you got 5 minutes? I want to chat with you. And I'll just address it head on with them privately. Do you have any? We don't believe in, and here's how I have those conversations. So Jenna, so-and-so is no longer with the team. I know you were really close with them. And I know times like this can be really hard for you. Are there any concerns that you have? And most of the time, Jenna's hesitant to share anything. And so I'll dig deeper and I'll say something to the effect of, Jenna, I know this is really, really hard for you. And I know we have a very strict no gossip policy here, but this is you and I talking. I pulled you aside for a reason. If you have any concerns, this is the time to actually address them. And nothing in this conversation is considered gossip. This is just your opportunity to vent, to ask your questions, and I'm here to help you. And just keep that framework to allow Jenna to open up and share whatever her concerns are, because I promise you she has some. And it's also an opportunity in those one-on-one conversations, if there are some things that you need to address more deeply. You can go a little bit more deeply than you would in like my video role play that I did a minute ago, with still staying above board and staying above, but you can go a little more deep on the reason that person actually left, because it's in a private one-on-one conversation.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool. Good stuff. So misconceptions. I think that it's sometimes turnover is negative, but in my experience, the majority of the time, even if it's not a majority of the time, honestly, immediately it's a positive, right? If you have strict culture and core values and you have standards and you're upholding either one of those, that's a good turnover. It still sucks, it still hurts, but you're protecting the organization and you're protecting the standards, the values, and the principles you put in place for a reason, and that's what you should do as a good leader. But almost even more time, even the ones that hurt up front, are the ones that maybe you don't understand. Over time, you're like, that's why. And I'm really glad that it happened. Sometimes for them and for us. right? I remember one conversation, and I think this, and then we'll move to the next thing. But I remember one conversation I had. It was when I was still learning, and I'm always learning, but I was not as far down the path as I am now with kind of helping people make the decision that maybe they struggle to make for themselves. That's leadership language you guys should write down, by the way. Your job and responsibility as a leader when it comes to production, when it comes to standards, values, and principles, sometimes you have to help them make a decision that they're struggling to make for themselves. And I will say that up front. And I remember one particular conversation, I sat down with an agent that was struggling. They were struggling financially. And I said, I'll keep their name out of it, but I sat down and I said, hey, thanks so much for meeting with me. This meeting is not going to be easy. It's not fun for me. I know it's not going to be fun for you. But we've decided that we're no longer a good fit. And I think sometimes in your heart, if you really looked in your heart, you know that this is the best decision for you and your family. You're just struggling to make it. And I think one of my responsibilities as a leader is to help you make a decision that maybe you're struggling to make for yourself and your family. And I think it's time that you actually go and find another job. And I'm happy to give you a recommendation so that you can stop the struggling for you and your family. And it's not a fun conversation. But I've had multiple of those, and I've had 2 or 3 of them in that moment, like break down in tears and thank me because they were struggling. They didn't know what to do. And I've had all of them except for one come back later and thank me for that conversation because it helped free them, because they feel a lot of times they feel an obligation to stick on to you. And it's maybe that's not what's best for them. So anything there, Jenna, you want to add?
Yeah, it reminds me of one thing we talked. So new agents who come on, they come into boot camp, onboarding, right? And there are those agents you'll see that you just know they're struggling. This is probably not a good fit for them. And one thing we say is you either coach up or coach out. And you should be so comfortable with that attrition as a leader. I'm not saying comfortable as in like hunky-dory, it's fun, but comfortable as in that you know that it's part of your job, it's part of your role, that you are running towards it in terms of be willing to coach someone out, especially in the early days. Don't let them get so far into it where, like Matt's talking about, they're struggling, they're financially hurting, their family's hurting, don't let people get so far to that point. If you have those identifiers early on, start coaching them out early. So that way you don't have to get to that point where we're, in such bad shape.
100%. I want to move on to the next point, Jenna. And what you and I talked just briefly before we went on air here, and we both kind of had like a light bulb moment of we view attrition and turnover as healthy. Mm-hmm. Right? I think most people don't, but we view it as healthy. And I'd like to unpack that a little bit. So share your thoughts on where you think attrition is healthy and how does it help the organization? How does it help the individual? Let's unpack that a little bit.
Well, I think there's 2 layers for it. So first, I think it's healthy when on the front end, you're ensuring that you're hiring culture fits and you're hiring people to your culture. If you're just accepting anyone into your organization and you have a high turnover rate, it's likely because you're not even trying to see if they're a culture fit. So I think it's healthy if you're making sure that you have something, some sort of interview, some sort of something to identify that they have a chance in your organization. So long as that's happening, I view it as healthy. It's something I told Matt a while back. I think I brought it up in a podcast, but we view culture, it's a living, breathing thing. And so I compare it to a vine or a plant. And what I mean by that is when you have this plant and sometimes it's looking a little sad, it's looking a little sorry. Sometimes it just needs some water and some sunlight and that perks it right back up. You got to nurture it, take care of it, right? Sometimes you do those things and it's still looking bad. It's still starting to, it's still not going well. And you realize that there's too much growth, there's overgrowth, there's weeds, there's something that every time you water it, that's what's taking all the water. Every time you put sunlight on it, they're taking all that sunlight. They're not even giving an opportunity for the rest of the plant to have sunlight. It's not getting a chance to get to the roots. And so your plant is slowly dying because you're not taking care of that overgrowth. You're not taking care of the plant properly. And so the solution in that scenario is you have to prune the plant. You have to prune the vine. And when you do that, it's going to look really ugly initially. You're going to do it. You're going to have a really ugly looking plant. And you're going to say, my plant used to be really pretty And now all of a sudden it looks like crap. And you're going to start doubting yourself. Did I prune too much? Did I go too far? Did I do this? But give it a couple of weeks and you're going to start seeing some regrowth and you're going to start seeing some life happening again. And then give it a couple months and that plant is going to look different, but it's going to look more beautiful and it's going to be stronger than it was to begin with. And that's what your culture is like and how you have to approach situations like this. It is hard when people leave and when you have to ask people to go sometimes. It's incredibly hard and your culture is going to look a little weird. It might be a little ugly initially. And it's not going to bounce back right off the bat, but give it a couple weeks and you'll start seeing people coming out of their offices. You'll hear some more laughter and you'll see those connections start rebuilding. Give it a couple months and your culture is going to be stronger and more beautiful than it was before. And that's how I view it as healthy.
I love it. And like what I was thinking too when you were saying that is like, what is your other option?
Die.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what is your other option in that scenario? You just keep limping along and you keep doing what's not working and hoping that something magic is going to happen. It's going to start working. If it's not working, you got to change.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like and I think most times for that individual too, it helps them. Sometimes they struggle to see it, which is fine. And maybe they don't think it's best for them. But at the end of the day, if they're the ones taking all the water, if they're the ones taking all the sunlight and it's forcing everyone else to struggle, they're no longer contributing to the organization. And contribution is one of our core principles. You have to contribute. And I don't know how to say it other than if you put culture first, you have to make these tough decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And attrition is a part of it. But what you will realize is something I realized in the team meeting we just had this week was that when you continually make those decisions that are based on values, principles, and standards, the team respects it and the team supports it and the team has your back. And they now are bought in to protect their environment because they see the sacrifices that you are making to protect them. And it's literally something that someone said in our team meeting Tuesday, where we talked about some of these things, was what's really cool to see, and this was from an agent. What's really cool to see is that she said that I feel like our culture polices itself. I feel like people realize if they aren't a good fit. And what she meant by that is that people just feel off if they don't contribute, if they don't build relationships, if they don't go the extra mile, if they don't accept responsibility, and if they don't believe, go to any of our core values, if they don't take initiative, any of the things that we continually abide by in our core values, like they feel awkward if they don't believe in those and then they don't live by those. And our culture just kind of has a way of those people no longer fit.
Yeah.
And it's really, really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I know even for me personally, there's times because none of us live like and breathe perfection all the time. Like we're going to make mistakes here and there. But the amazing thing about this culture, right? Speak for yourself. But like the amazing thing is in our culture is like, I know there's times where I'll, let's say, make a knee-jerk reaction or decision and my immediate response is, ooh, I don't like that. That didn't accept responsibility. That wasn't me building a positive relationship, and that immediate feeling and then taking that feeling and apologizing to a person or owning to that mistake, correcting it. But that's it living in real life because you can't expect your people to be perfect. It's just not going to happen. They're going to step out of your core values because we can't live in them 24/7 all day long. I wish we could, but we can't. It's the ability to recognize when you've stepped out of it. And the more you do it, the quicker it gets, which is a great thing. But you step out of it quickly, you realize it, you move on, and you own it and move on.
100%. And I think accept responsibility. It's one of my favorite core values, and it's the hardest one to abide by for a lot of people. And I think that if I unpack this and I go back to the years on the team and just really, and I've spent a lot of time to studying this, I think that there's one core value that stands out to me that can tell me if someone's going to make it on our team or not. Their willingness to accept responsibility. if they're willing to accept responsibility and they're inside of our culture and our organization, there's a very, very, very high chance they will be successful. But what our culture weeds out is the victims and the people that point the finger, and they blame the market, or they blame the leads, or they blame the leadership, or they blame whatever, instead of saying, man, what can I do differently? And the people that really look in the mirror and say, man, if I could change my behaviors and I could do this, this, and this differently, maybe I'll get a different result. Those people thrive. And what's really cool to see by, like, this is an attrition conversation, but it just reminds me of, like, when we're having this conversation, I'm going back and reminiscing on the lives that we've touched and the people they're different people now, right? They're not the same person they were when they walked in the door on day one. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's the stuff that really abiding by. And that's why I say attrition or turnover isn't always a bad thing. Because if we didn't stick to those core values, if we didn't stick to those standards, if we didn't have those tough conversations, those people's lives wouldn't be affected the way that they are today. And we wouldn't be able to serve the clients at the level that we serve them. We wouldn't be able to contribute to the community at the level that we do. And it's a part of it, right? Like, it doesn't make anyone wrong. It doesn't make anyone a bad person, or it's sometimes we just have to make decisions that align with our values, our principles, and our standards. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you do that, it's not always an easy decision, but you can go back and you can sleep well at night knowing that you did it for the right reasons. And in my experience, it always comes out, even if it takes months. You're like, man, now I see why that happened.
Yeah, I do want to point out one thing that you had mentioned when you were talking about accepting responsibility, just to further push, like, how important it is to set those expectations in the interview. That's something that Matt specifically cares so much about. Our team cares so much about. That is such a massive identifier for our culture, that we have questions in our interview specifically to identify that. One of Matt's favorite questions, my favorite questions, is tell me about a time that you maybe had a disagreement with someone that you worked with, or someone, or a leader, and they'll tell you about this, situation. They'll, be really upset and angry, maybe go off about it. And you say, okay, in that situation, tell me something that you could have done better or differently. And that's a great identifier. If someone says nothing, I nailed it, like I did everything, I'm good, there's almost always something you can go back and say, I could have spoken up quicker. I could have confronted the situation before it got out of control. Like, there's almost always something you can do. But again, that's such an expectation of our environment, that we expect our people to take responsibility and accept responsibility, that we preface it in the interview so we can go back to the interview.
Jenna, is that something that we could share with everyone? Could we do kind of like a quick lead magnet where if they go to a domain, they could download it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll get that in the show notes.
Can we just do like allornothinginrealestate.com/interview?
Absolutely.
We'll put that in the show notes too, but I just want to get back to you. So it's just literally, if you go to that domain, allornothinginrealestate.com/interview, we'll give you our interview questions that we ask that kind of take to that framework, because I think it's really important that you have a great interview requires great questions and go in depth on those questions. And so if you struggle with that, that's something we've developed, and they change all the time, right? We're always evolving those, but the latest version you can get there.
Yep.
Cool. And one thing too that I want to also highlight on is that making these decisions isn't always easy. There's been multiple times where I have decided to let go of our top producers. It happened once in the very early days. Our top producer at a time where our team was in its infant stage, and I'll just be honest, we weren't making any money. And I still made a decision based on principles and based on values to let someone go that was our top producer, and the only chance that we had at making money over the next 90 days. But I made the decision in principles, and I made the decision based on values. And that's never changed, and I will never sway from that. Doesn't always make it easy, but I don't think we would be where we are today without those decisions. Mm-hmm. One that I can think of recently is that myself and leadership spent a lot of time discussing, and we let go of our top producer recently. It's been a couple years, but one of our top producers that had sold 100 homes in a year. And the very next year, a couple months after that, we decided they're no longer a good fit. So that's how deeply rooted we are in these values and these principles. And that's how much they mean to us. And a lot of people reach out to me and they see like the post that we made with our 10 agents over 100 closings. They're like, how is that possible? Well, we have a lot more. They're just no longer a good fit for our organization, and that's fine. Or that maybe they decided to move on too. Either way, it's fine. But I really think that post isn't possible if we don't make these tough decisions to stick to our values, our principles, our standards. And I'll throw in a fourth one: accountability.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just crucial that you have those four staples in your organization, and that will breed attrition, that will breed turnover.
Mm-hmm.
That also breeds a culture of success, a culture of people that are leveling each other up, a culture of people that are chasing greatness and chasing the best version of themselves every day. And it's really, really hard to compete with that. There's a reason that we continue to be number one in our marketplace and continue to rise the Real Trends rankings, even though we're in a very small marketplace. And I really, truly believe that it's just rooted in our values and our standards and who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to practice what you preach. If you're going to be telling your team, like we tell our team, culture over sales, and that's what we firmly believe. We have to practice that. And then sometimes that includes making tough decisions to protect the team and the culture,
Sure.
including letting go of bigger or top producers. It's hard, but it's practicing what we preach.
Yep. And the fourth item I have here on my list here would be, if you're going to stick to these and you're going to have attrition, you're going to have turnover, you also need to make sure you have a steady recruiting plan. Just again, I went through some numbers and we're halfway through the year. We have had 6 agents that we've offboarded, but we've onboarded 18. And so it makes it way easier, and it removes those invisible handcuffs that so many leaders feel like they have if you have a solid recruiting plan. And I think too, like it's just, I don't know how else to say it other than recruiting solves all your problems. It just does. Now we've laid out a bunch of the principles of how that applies through this whole episode. But Jenna, what's your experience with recruiting? What have you seen from your seat?
Yeah, recruiting again is something I was pretty foreign to when I first started here. And I think I fell into the trap a lot of people fall into when you first introduce recruiting, especially with agents. They can feel like you're taking opportunities from them, the leads that they would get, they're not going to somebody else. They're taking more under contract, like you're getting less opportunity. And what I found is the exact opposite, that there's usually more than enough opportunity to go around. And if anything, it allows others in the organization to have even more opportunity because of recruiting. That's the biggest thing that I fell into that myself, feeling like, oh man, even in operations, if somebody else comes in, oh my gosh, does that mean like pieces of my job are leaving? No, usually I end up getting a lot more stuff on my plate if that happens. It's the same thing in the recruiting side of things with agents. You have just as much opportunity, if not more.
Yeah, and that requires the leadership to actually make sure that you're ready to recruit, right? Mm-hmm. So you have enough opportunity. But I think most people have way too much opportunity, right? They have way too many leads, including us. And so what happens is sometimes if you just focus on, so as an example, one of the standards we rolled out is our agents have less than 100 leads in their database at all times. And our agents, some of our OGs were kind of concerned with that at first, and rightfully so. But what they've experienced so far is that helps them be way more efficient, and that helps them actually sell more real estate because they're focusing on the right people. And then when they get caught up with that and they want to go prospecting, they want to go find some more opportunities, they go in our ponds. They have access, right, to whatever opportunity they want. There's tons of access. It's over 20,000 lead opportunities we've created this year, the first 6 months of the year. And that's just the ones we can track, right? There's way more than that. And so there's an abundance of opportunity in our organization. And so make sure that you have that, right? You got to have those systems in place. If you want me to help you build that or look at that, I'm happy to. So it's not all new leads. It's just opportunities is what I would urge you to track. But when you're recruiting, you have to make sure. I think a lot of people go wrong with recruiting. They either try to, I'm only going to recruit people that I know are going to be successful. And they have 3 interviews and they have a disc test and they want to meet their mom and then their cousin and their stepbrother. And it's just this big, long list of all these obstacles in the way of getting people in the door. And then I think there's the other end of the spectrum. We'll just bring everybody in. And what I've found works really well is somewhere in the middle. And I think it's removing obstacles from the interview. When you're interviewing, we're looking for a couple things. Number one, we're looking for, are they a good culture fit? And our interview questions, if you go download them, alornothingrrealestate.com/interview, you'll have some of that framework. But we're looking for, are they a good culture fit? We're looking for, are they open-minded? You have to be open-minded. And we're looking for, do they have the work ethic that it requires? If they have those 3 things, then they've earned an opportunity to start in our organization if they're willing to do the work. But then in our boot camp, we have strict guidelines, and not everybody makes that a boot camp. And that's by design, right? Like, it's supposed to be hard because real estate's not easy. And if we make it hard on you in the beginning and you do the work that is required and you build those habits, you're way more likely to be successful in the future. And what we haven't had in a lot of our recent onboarding classes is that massive success. People setting their first appointments in the first week, people getting things under contract before they're out of boot camp. I recently spoke at John Cheplak's Maverick event, and I shared from our last 90 days of onboarding. Our last 90 days of onboarding, I think it consisted of, I don't know, Jenna, how many people was it? Like 10?
Well, it would have been the 18, wouldn't it?
No, not in 90 days. So I think it was 12.
Okay.
I think it was 10 or 12 people in the last 90 days that I onboarded. And I ran a report on them, and they had set over 150 appointments in the last 60 days. They had 82 agreements signed in the last 60 days of buyer's agency or listing agreements from 10 to 12 brand new agents that onboarded in less than 90 days ago. That's the power of recruiting. That's the power of bringing people in with the right expectations. And not only how does that affect, let's talk 2 parts. How does that affect the company culture? Now, other people are going to want to do more activity because a rising tide rises all ships. They see these people doing more work. They're like, oh, crap, I can do more too. Right? That's just how it works. That's human nature. But also, let's talk about putting in the tough expectations and the standards and making it difficult when they first join so that now they have success in this career that they're actually after. Right? Like, I think it's our responsibility to do those things. And I think sometimes we make it too easy, and they need a little struggle. They need a little suffering. They need a little sacrifice. But if they're willing to do those things, they can accomplish whatever they want in this career. And that's what I want for them.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. And one thing too, we had talked about initially the team response and stuff with recruiting. It's important that retention is also part of your recruiting plan. I think that they go
1,000%.
They go hand in hand. When you're recruiting out other agents, how are you recruiting your current agents too? I know, Matt, you have a lot on that topic.
Yeah, I think everything that you can, when you say the word recruiting, or you hear the word recruiting from any guru or any coach, whether legit or not, just replace that word with retention. Are you re-recruiting your current roster? Are you re-recruiting your current agents? Are you re-indoctrinating them into the values, into the standards, into the accountability, into everything that your team provides? Part of your job is to continually re-recruit your current roster. If you're not re-enrolling them, re-recruiting them, making sure that they are following the process, making sure you're meeting them halfway, doing your part as a business partner. Because as an agent grows and progresses through their career, what happens most of the time on most teams? They stop seeing the value in the team because law of diminishing value, right? What was valued for me last year isn't so valuable for me this year. And so are you out in front of that as a team leader? If you don't believe me, think of something new that you bought, whether it's a new car, it could be a new pair of shoes, a new clothes. Think of something that you were proud of when you bought it. How long did it take for you to stop being proud of it? Not very damn long. Right? Most of us, if you've got a new car, right, as an example, Like when you're driving down a gravel road, you'll drive real slow because you don't want it to get dirty. You clean it every day. That'll last about 2 weeks, right? And then you just don't give a shit anymore. So that's just how we are as humans. And so what are we doing as leaders to meet those agents to ensure that we are there through their step of the journey? Because as they grow as an agent, so do their needs. They need different things. Sometimes they need more support. Sometimes they need you to step back. Sometimes they need more leads. Sometimes they need less. Sometimes they want more time, so they need more leverage. Sometimes they maybe they're in a position where they don't want to grow over the next quarter. They're like, I'm just good where I'm at. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to do whatever. And do you know that with your roster? You have to, because it is your job to meet them where they are. Again, let's go back to the very beginning of this conversation. One of my biggest failures as a leader is I see potential in people, which is an amazing gift, and I love it. But it led me down the wrong path and me wanting more for people than they wanted for themselves. And if you push them more than they want to be pushed, it drives friction and a wedge in the relationship that sometimes you can't repair, even though it comes from a great place. And so instead of pushing, you have to pull them, and you have to meet them where they are. And sometimes they're not ready yet for that next step, and you have to be okay with that. But you also have to be there when they are ready to help pull them up. So important. I don't know if that's where you wanted me to go with that, Jenna, but that's what was hard.
No, I love it. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think next thing is we talked about all that. So how is the next thing?
So that's one of the number one questions I get. They hear a lot of my stuff is about recruiting, and they're like, well, how do I even recruit? Mm-hmm. So it actually caused us to create a program. And so we created recruiting funnels that we use in our business, and they're available, built for you. So if you're interested in what a recruiting plan looks like, I'm happy to have a quick call with you to kind of go over that. Reach out to me, or you can just check out our recruiting funnels and we'll build them for you. It's a one-time fee. We'll build them for you in your accounts. Give you the playbook. I don't know how big is the playbook, like 96 pages of it. Here's exactly step by step what to do. Yeah. Jenna and I are actually planning a live Zoom with those that have already purchased. And that could be you if you're interested, of kind of just re-going over it. We're starting to see people are getting a lot of traction with their funnels, which is awesome. We just want to make sure we build upon that because we're committed to helping people get success with those. And so there's some subtleties and nuances that we want to help coach through, as well as live Q&A. And so if you're interested in getting those recruiting funnels built for you, that is literally, here is exactly what to do. And it's built for you with your image, your branding, your everything in your accounts. All you have to do is hit the play button and run the play. If you're interested in that for a consistent conveyor belt of recruits that are asking you, can I join your organization? That we've been working on, and I don't want to say we've perfected, because I don't think it'll ever be perfect, but we have consistently improved for the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. Lots of time, blood, sweat, and tears into these. This is the playbook for you. Go to 3recruitingfunnelsbuilt.com. All spelled out, 3recruitingfunnelsbuilt.com, and you can get more information there. If that's not of interest to you, you don't need that, don't worry about it. I'm not trying to sell you on anything, just trying to help you. And if you resonated with this topic, which again, I'm kind of risking having this topic because I've never heard anyone else talk about it. And I consume a lot of content, but I just thought that if it's something that I go through, I'm sure other people do, and I'm just transparent. And I don't think all attrition has to be bad. But if you have attrition, if you don't have attrition, I would say that's worse than having healthy attrition, right? You need attrition. If you're not growing, you're dying. And I think it's really important that if you're gonna stick to any of these principles or things that we talked about, you also have to be able to bring in new people with new standards, indoctrinate them into the culture, and again, get a culture that polices itself, and get a culture of people that are producing at very high levels that raise the levels, or raise the floor, if you will, of the organization. Jenna, anything to add?
Nope, it's an awesome, and with those 3 recruiting funnels, there is a bonus funnel now. So we have 3.
But wait, there's more.
Oh wait, there's more. But yes, we do have 3 recruiting funnels that
awful.
Help for recruiting newer agents, and then we do have an experienced agent funnel. That's something a lot of team leaders have expressed interest in, of focusing on that. And we do have a funnel for that as well too.
Yep, absolutely. And Jenna's really the brainchild behind the marketing of that. And so is there anything marketing related that, say someone is interested in the funnels, but they're like, maybe they don't, it's tough right now, right? Maybe they don't have the money to buy, and that's perfectly fine. Like, if they're listening here, how can we help them with their own version of a smaller version of recruiting funnels? What would be your advice from a marketing perspective?
Well, I mean, to be honest, you can still go to that website and watch the webinar where we talk about how you can do a lot of these things. You can do them yourself. You can do them. It takes a lot of work, and that's why we offer the built for you, because it's completely built for you. We build your landing pages, your graphics, your copyright, your email, your drip plans, like everything. Everything is built for you. So it's plug and play. It's simple. But if you don't have that and you want to spend the time doing it, the funnels are the day in the life of a real estate agent funnel, real estate classes, a scholarship for the real estate classes, and how to make $100,000 in real estate. We walk you through that in that webinar.
I love it. And I think something that my advice would be that just start.
Mm-hmm.
You have to recruit. If you want to grow, you have to recruit, and remove any negative connotations you have around the word recruiting. You're just trying to bring in good people. Every company that has ever grown has recruited. They just call it something different, maybe, right? And so you have to recruit. You have to bring in like-minded people that are hungry, motivated, fit your values, right? It's an open-minded, so important. But if you don't know where to start, just start somewhere. And I think somewhere that you could start would be treat it like it's a business. If you're listening to this, you have buyer and seller business. What do you do to get buyer and seller opportunities? Do the exact same thing, just change your messaging and make it towards agents. Provide them value. Give them some sort of value. Do you have CRM for them? Are you making a social media post letting people know that you're hiring? And it's not this flashy, hey, we're hiring. It's Jenna calls it sneaky recruiting, right? And so are you sharing success stories of other agents? Are you sharing what is possible? Are you sharing a value of, here's how this one agent sold 3 houses in their first month? And then you deposit, and then maybe you withdraw, right? And you say, like, go back to Gary Vaynerchuk, jab, 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 right hook, right? You got to have those jabs in, and you got to make sure that you're depositing value. And then it's okay to withdraw and say, hey, look, we're looking for awesome agents, right? But you have to continually deposit value into the marketplace. And I got this from John Cheplack. One of the best recruiting principles that I ever got is you want to be in second place. You want to demonstrate better leadership than their current leader. So one of two things happens over time. Something happens in that relationship, and then they want to join you, or your leadership just continues to grow and they're like, what am I doing here? I should go work with this company because they're helping me more than my current leader. And if you just live in that abundance and that contribution, you just can't lose. Awesome. Jenna, anything else?
Nope. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was a good chat.
Yeah, thank you. It was it was very, very insightful. I learned something. So thank you for your time. Sharing. And I'm sure you guys will see Jenna around on some more episodes. She always has great stuff to share. And as always, guys, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you spending your valuable time to listen to this show. I hope this was valuable for you. It's something that I'm doing as a passion project. And so I just ask, if you related with anything on this episode, or you know anyone that would, just share this episode with them. I'm on a mission to help as many people as I can and give back. And not many people are sharing real, raw, authentic. Like, as an example, go find another podcast on attrition and turnover in real estate. I just don't know if it exists. I haven't seen it. And so I'm not doing this for anything other than I'm in this journey with you. I'm in the trenches doing this alongside you. And I think I could provide a unique perspective, and I want to help work alongside you through the struggles that I've experienced. And so just share this with a friend, and I hope that we can continue to make an impact on this industry. And who knows what the future holds for this industry. So I think we all need to come together, and this is an opportunity for us to do so. So thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks.